Hi guys, and welcome back to I Speak English. My name's Hayley, and in this episode we're going to be taking a look at advanced expressions for work. So we're going to look at some collocations, phrasal verbs, and idiomatic expressions as well. And you're going to be able to use these in your Cambridge C1 exam if you're taking that, specifically in your speaking, also in your writing as well. And you might get tested in use of English. And they're just useful expressions anyway for everyday life. So even if you're not taking the Cambridge C1 exam, stay with me here and we're going to take a look at some useful expressions. So let's get into it. So before we take a look at our expressions, I just want to explain something about this lesson in particular. And this is actually going to be a companion lesson or a companion episode to the podcast episode that I released last week about work. So when I was making the vocabulary list for that episode, when I was looking at all the vocabulary I'd used, I was like, wow, there's tons of amazing vocab here. I think I used like 40 idioms and like 30 phrasal verbs just naturally while I was speaking for like 30 minutes. So I just wanted to teach you some of that vocabulary because it's really useful and it's really common as well. If you didn't know, I do a podcast now. I just started a few weeks ago, and I do lots of different topics. It's aimed at C1 to C2 level, and I don't slow down my speech when I'm talking. So it's really good for listening practice, and you get lots of great vocabulary, like I just said. And it's in British English because that's what I speak. So if you want, I'll put the link to this episode up here. I'll put it in the description as well. And you can also download the vocabulary list from that episode on that video. So go to that video if you want the full list. So today we're not going to do the full list. I think I've got 4 collocations, 4 phrasal verbs, and 4 idioms for you to look at. And then we're also going to look at how you can use it in your speaking exam as well. So I'll give you example questions and example answers. So before we get to the expressions, make sure that you are subscribed and that you give this video a like if you learn something new. I post videos every Saturday, long form videos, and shorts every single day. So you can learn English for free if you subscribe. Right, enough of that. Let's get on to our expressions then. So, like I said, in the vocabulary list on the other video, I used something like 15 collocations, 28 phrasal verbs, and 38 idioms in about half an hour of speaking. So that kind of shows you why it's really important to learn them, because they're used so much in natural speech. I used them without even thinking about them, and then when I look back at the transcript, I was like, wow, that's a lot. So it's really, really important to learn them, not only for the exam, but also just because you want to be able to understand English, right? So that's what we're going to do now. We're not going to do all 15. We're just going to do 4. We're going to start with 4 collocations, first of all. Let's take a look then at our collocations. So we've got a steady income. So if you have a steady income, it's like stable. You can like rely on that every week or every month. For example, she finally got a full-time job and was relieved to have a steady income again. Okay, so a reliable income. We've got work-life balance. This is super common. Okay, so he took a remote job to improve his work-life balance and spend more time with the kids. So work-life balance is exactly what it says. It's the balance between how much you work and the rest of the stuff you do with your life. So you want a good work-life balance. You want to actually have some equilibrium there between each one. Okay, next up we've got creative freedom. Okay, so again, this is just the freedom to be creative in your job. So, for example, working for herself gave her the creative freedom to design projects exactly how she wanted. Okay, so instead of saying having the freedom to do what you want, you can just say creative freedom. And the final one, a dead-end job. Again, super common. A dead-end job is a job without any possibility of improving or developing or getting a promotion. It's like you're just stuck at this point and you're not going to go further or advance. Okay, so for example, here we've got, he felt stuck in a dead-end job with no promotion opportunities. Okay, so that's a really nice adjective noun collocation to use there. Right, super quick collocations done again on the vocabulary list, which you can find on the other video. There's like 15 more collocations there, which are really useful for you. We're going to move on to phrasal verbs. Again, we're only going to do 4. We're not going to do the full amount. So in the podcast, I used the phrasal verb branch out. To branch out is when so the branch is like a branch on a tree, right? You have different branches that go different ways. Branch out in your career is similar. You kind of take a different career path than the one that you're on, or you do something different that's not like specific to what you're doing now. So for example, I could say, after years of teaching English, she decided to branch out into podcasting and online courses. So that's exactly what I've done. I am a teacher, but I branched out, and now I've got a podcast and a YouTube channel and online courses as well. By the way, if you're interested in taking an online course, I'll put the link in the description, or you can visit my website as well, www.englishclassesonline.co.uk, and you can find all of my online courses there. Meanwhile, we're going to move on to another phrasal verb, to rake it in. It meaning money. So if you rake it in, you make a lot of money. If you don't know what a rake is, it's a tool that you would use in your garden to collect leaves. Actually, let me show you here. I can get it up super quick. Where am I? A rake. This is a rake. So you would use it for, collecting leaves. So if you imagine the leaves are money and you're just raking it in, you're like collecting tons of money, basically. So if you rake it in, you make lots of money. All right, so let me get back to my phrasal verbs. So for example, to rake it in, the new cafe in town is absolutely raking it in. It's packed every weekend. Okay, so the new cafe is making tons of money. So a person can rake it in, or a company can rake it in as well. All right, next up we've got level up. To level up, it's kind of exactly what it says. You go a level up. So you can level up your career if you get a promotion. You can level up, let's say, your business. If you have your own business, you can level that up. You can level up a skill. You level up your English skills. You practice English a lot. You go to the next level. You level up. To use it in a sentence, he took a marketing course to level up his business and attract more clients. Okay, and our final one is clock in or clock out, which means to start work or to finish work. So you clock in, you start work, you clock out, you finish work. Okay, so a very informal way to say start and finish. For example, I have to clock in by 9 every morning or my manager gets a notification. Okay, I need to start work every morning. So clock in, clock out. Simple. All right, moving on. We're going quick today. I don't know why. I've got lots of energy today, so I'm going fast. Hope you can keep up. Idiomatic expressions. Again, I used something like 38 idioms in the podcast episode from last week, and they were all, really natural. They just came out while I was speaking, and they're all really common as well. So it is super important to learn idioms if you want to sound more natural when you speak, and also just to be able to understand people in general as well. So I use the idiom to tread water. To tread water means you are not progressing in any way. You are stuck where you are. If you tread water, it means literally, if you are in a swimming pool and you're just kind of doing this, you're not actually swimming, you're just staying with your head above water, but you're not going anywhere. That's what tread water means. But you can use it in a work sense. You can use it in any sense that means you're not progressing and you're just kind of stuck where you are. To use it in a sentence, I feel like I've been treading water at this job for years and I'm not learning anything new or moving forward. Okay, to tread water. To tread means to step. Normally you tread on something, you step on something, but we use it for water as well. Next one, to pull your weight, another really common idiom. You can say pull your own weight or pull your weight. I think I've taught this in another video before, one of my idiomatic expression videos. I think it's also in my idioms course as well. To pull your own weight is to do your fair share of the work. So whatever your responsibilities are, you do them. You contribute, an equal amount to a team effort. So again, for me, I imagine like lots of people pulling like a big heavy object, and all of them are pulling it together, so everyone is pulling their own weight. If one person were to not pull and just pretend, they're not pulling their own weight. Okay, so that's what I would imagine anyway. So to use it in a sentence, everyone on the team has to pull their weight if we want to finish the project on time. Okay, so everyone on the team has to do their responsibilities, otherwise it won't be finished. Next up, we've got sink or swim. This is kind of quite literal, really. It's basically like just succeed or fail. Like you succeed or you die, basically. But yeah, you can use this in a work situation to be like, oh, it was a very extreme, like difficult situation, and I had no choice but to just do it and succeed, or just fail completely. So to use it in a sentence, you would say, when I started my first teaching job, there was no training. It was sink or swim from day one. That's quite true for me. When I first started teaching, I was doing what do they call it? Not an apprenticeship. I was doing an assistantship. I was meant to be like an assistant teacher with the British Council in Italy. I'd never taught a day in my life before. I had no training whatsoever. And I walked into a classroom where there was already a teacher, and I should have just been assisting that teacher. And the teacher just went, bye, I'm going for a coffee, and walked out of the room and left me with like 30 teenage boys, having never taught a lesson before in my life. So that was very much sink or swim for me. And I swam, so I survived. I'm okay. The final one we've got to look at is somebody breathing down your neck. Okay, so if somebody breathes down your neck, it's very literal. If you imagine someone here, like behind your shoulder, like looking over your shoulder all the time, you can feel the breath on your neck here. It's like someone who's constantly trying to control what you're doing, or they're like observing you all the time. Or criticizing you as well. It could be as well. If you imagine your boss is just stood here, staring, looking at what you're doing, that's somebody breathing down your neck. To use it in a sentence, you could say, I can't concentrate with my boss breathing down my neck all the time. All right, so that's all our vocab. Now we're going to take a look at how you would use it in the exam. So we're going to do some speaking part 1 questions and answers, and speaking part 4 as well. So, part 1, for example, you might get a question like, what kind of job would you like to have in the future? And you could respond something like, ideally, something that gives me creative freedom. I can't see myself stuck in a repetitive routine. I want to be challenged. Another bit of vocab for you: to be stuck in a routine. Okay, so verb, noun, collocation there. Okay, another question. Do you prefer working alone or in a team? You could say, I like both, but in a team, everyone needs to pull their weight. It's frustrating when someone slacks off and others have to make up for it. So we've got two phrasal verbs here. To slack off is when you don't do work, you're lazy, and you don't do anything. You slack off. Others have to make up for it. They have to compensate for it. So if you make up for something, you compensate. All right. Next one. Would you like to run your own business someday? You could say, actually, yes. I'd love to branch out and work for myself. It's risky, but you can choose your direction and potentially rake it in if it goes well. So I've got branch out and rake it in there. By the way, if you want to practice any of these idioms or phrasal verbs, just leave me a comment, write a sentence in the comments using one of the phrasal verbs or idioms, and I'll correct you so that you know that you're using the idiom or phrasal verb correctly. All right, so that's part one. Let's take a look at part four. So they might say, some people say it's better to have a safe job with a regular income. Do you agree? So part four now, you need to extend your answers a bit more. And as usual, use a variety of vocabulary and grammar. So let's take a look at the response. It depends. A steady income gives you peace of mind. Nice collocation, peace of mind. Especially if you have a family or financial responsibilities. But for others, that stability can feel restrictive. They might prefer riskier jobs that offer more creative freedom or the chance to level up quickly. Okay, so we've got phrasal verb there. We've got a couple of collocations there. So you can just see how this language makes your speech a bit more natural, and it just gives it more variety instead of repeating the same vocabulary over and over. And also examiners are listening that you don't repeat the same vocab over and over, and they want to hear different vocabulary and grammar from you. All right, next one. Do you think people work too many hours these days? By the way, also, if you want to answer these questions, you can also leave a little comment. How would you answer this question? Write me a little comment. Obviously, you would speak it in the exam. But write me a comment telling me how you would answer this question. Try to use some of the vocabulary that you've been taught today, just to practice a little. So, do you think people work too many hours nowadays? You could say yes. Especially in big cities, it's hard to maintain healthy work-life balance when you're constantly expected to be available, even after you clock out. Some companies are starting to realize this, but others still have a culture where managers breathe down your neck, which just creates stress. Okay, so again, phrasal verb, idiomatic expression, collocation. That's what we want to be doing in the exam. And we want to be doing it naturally if we can, rather than trying to crowbar vocabulary in where it sounds weird. You want to practice it so that you can use it naturally. A good way to practice it, if you don't have the chance to practice in speaking, is to write. Just write as much as you can, and that kind of forces your brain to produce the vocabulary. And also you get a bit more thinking at time as well when you're writing. All right, one more question. Is it always better to be employed by a company than to be self-employed? This was my question in the podcast last week. So if you're interested in this question, go take a look or a listen to the podcast. Let's take a look at the response here. Not necessarily. Working for a company can be great for people who want structure and a steady income, but it can also feel like a dead-end job if there's no room to grow. Being self-employed gives you the chance to branch out, but it's very much a sink or swim situation. There's no one to fall back on. Very true. As a self-employed person, it can be sink and swim quite a bit. But yeah, once you kind of get in the rhythm of things, get in your groove, then it stabilizes quite a bit. Right, so there you go. There you have it. There's some vocabulary for work, collocations, phrasal verbs, idioms. Like I said, you can use them in your C1 advanced exam, or if you're not taking the exam, just use them when you speak anyway, because they're really natural. If you learned something new today, please do give this video a like. It just helps it to get to more people, so that they can get some preparation for their C1 exam, or just learn vocab and English anyway. And make sure you're subscribed. Again, if you want weekly content and daily shorts, make sure you're subscribed and you can learn English for free every week. And as usual, if you are interested in taking a lesson with me or joining any of my courses, you can go to www.englishclassesonline.co.uk and you can contact me there. I'd be happy to teach you anytime. That's all from me for today, and I'll see you in another lesson soon. Have a nice day. See you soon. Bye.